Thank you for landing on Planet Xbox, and welcome to the Gamescom 2014 Roundtable with special featured guests from tech affiliate XboxMad.net, our Gamescom correspondent, journalist, and the Brit that takes no ish, Jez. You can also follow him on Twitter at MSFTY, that's at MSFTY. And from the Inner Circle podcast, unbiased gamer laying a smackdown to any console and study a game developer, Bmuny 101. Next we have Xbox Inner Circle PC tweeter, Tick News Finder, and poll setter, also known as the Digger, Unified. And I'm your host, leader of the best Xbox One clan community core, dedicated gamer, game writer, and host of the Tick podcast, KORX, Straight Murder. And it's all about the con, baby. Gamescom. What's hot, what's not, and where is gaming heading in the future. So sit back, relax, and have a listen. Yeah, guys, so, Gamescom was really good. I liked everything about the show, what was shown between Microsoft and Sony. And I just want to go right into our first question and get your impressions on the show as a whole from both sides. What are your impressions of the show from both Sony and Microsoft, and was it enough to make you feel that the future is bright for this generation? Let's start with Brandon.
I really like the show, man, from both parties. For the Microsoft side, they announced some big heavy hitters. They finally showed us Quantum Break. We saw that, and that was huge for them. And then they made the announcement for Tomb Raider, which was pretty big. And then from the Sony side, they didn't announce much, but they at least showed us some new games. Hellblade being one of them. They had the PT teaser,
right? And
then they had another game too. I can't remember what it is. But they did what they were supposed to do. The future looks bright for both sides, in my opinion.
Right. From what I understand, though, isn't PT an introduction to Silent Hill? Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I thought it was pretty cool from the Sony side. At the last two shows from E3 and then from Gamescom, they left something for the home viewers to play.
Gotcha. They did. That was impressive. I did like that.
I thought that was pretty cool because, if you're watching from all around the world, you don't really get to partake in the festivities of Gamescom or like E3. So to be able to get like Battlefield Hardline beta, that was pretty cool, and then to get this PT thing, I thought that was kind of awesome of them.
Yeah, that was pretty cool of them. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna be a little harsh. My impressions of the show it wasn't really as good as I was hoping for. I'll be honest. It was average. It was an average show.
Really?
Yeah, I thought so, man. Because I think what it is, I'm seeing games, but I'm not seeing like a high volume of games like we saw in the past gen. It seems like, but I think a lot of that is because of the indie movement, and everything is kind of going digital, all that stuff. So people are wanting to invest less in retail games,
right.
AAA games. So I guess I have to understand that, from a perspective, that's just the way the industry seems to be going. Man, if I take that away, the show, was better than average if you want to look at it from that perspective. Being fair, Tomb Raider exclusivity was a big deal. Somewhat. It's a timed exclusive, so probably most likely we'll see that game on PS4 at some point.
Right.
The next year, 2016, because it's exclusive to 2015 for Xbox One holiday.
Well, that's definitely possible.
Yeah. From a PlayStation perspective, Silent Hill really impressed me. The PT demo, that was a really good surprise, and actually I played it. That game is very promising, guys.
Did you have to change underwear? Because that's like the motto. Everybody's motto was, man, I had to change my underwear after playing that game.
Oh man, not no, but my wife was sitting with me
Uh-huh.
and watching me play, and she was laughing at me because I jumped a couple of times like a little girl, man. I won't lie, I
Yeah.
didn't sew my pants or anything, but man, I jumped a couple of times. That game is going to be really promising, and I'm really excited that Hideo Kojima is going to try to tackle
Yeah,
this
and
franchise. I think that's yeah, Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro,
Toro. Yeah, that's
the
big.
director of Pacific Rim
Yeah, that's
and
big.
Hellboy,
Yeah, Hellboy.
and Pan's Labyrinth, or no, not
Pan's
Pan's
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth.
Was it Pan's Labyrinth? I think it was Pan's Labyrinth. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
maybe Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
that style. He has that style.
but he's got a really he has a mind for the horror, man. I think he can bring that aspect into it. Um, Going back, I think indies were like at the forefront of the whole thing. To me,
Yeah,
it seemed like
sure.
that was the shining light on both shows. Can't forget Quantum Break though. Quantum Break looked impressive.
Right.
So I'm really even more excited about that game now
Right.
coming out of Gamescom. But
Right.
all in all, being fair about the whole thing with the way the industry's kind of going in respect to that, the show was solid. It was solid.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought the show was good. I mean, from both sides, it was a lot of console first, timed exclusive games coming. So I know that Hellblade is another first on PlayStation. So that game will be coming to Xbox. So I definitely look forward to playing that. I don't know if it's a successor to Heavenly Sword, which is what a lot of fans are saying. But I wouldn't expect it to be, only because I've never played Heavenly Sword. Even when I had a PlayStation 3, I never played it, so I would have no idea what the story is about or where it's
I
at.
did play Heavenly Sword. Actually, on that game. It is not a spiritual successor, not in my opinion. It's kind of got its own flavor,
Right.
and from what I read, it's going to be a little bit gameplay wise, a little bit different with some of the stuff that the character does versus Heavenly Sword. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So, Jez, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously you've got the massive bombshell that they dropped with Tomb Raider, which set Twitter ablaze.
Fire. On fire.
Oh man, people were straight out disrespecting the writer of Tomb Raider. God.
That was just exposed all the things wrong with the gaming community. That did.
Yeah.
And also you've got Halo as well, which we already know about. There wasn't a great deal of new information, but also there's they showed the gameplay of Quantum Break, didn't they, to the public for the first time, and I think that was probably the standout. I mean, I've been on Xbox's YouTube channel and seen like the trailers that they showed to the public. I think you're going to ask me later about the gameplay they showed to the press, which was
different.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
I can't wait to get to that. I think the show was good. I think the show was good from both perspectives. I was very impressed with what Sony showed as far as Rhyme and Wild. I really liked Rhyme. Rhyme I'm telling you, when I saw the game, I swore it was going to be a redone The Last Guardian. I mean, just the way it was set up, and it seemed like they were trying to get to the tower to unlock the creature that was inside, but it turned out to be something else. So I guess my dreams for The Last Guardian is still a dream until hopefully they can revive it, or it may be just completely done. And from Microsoft's perspective, Tomb Raider obviously was a bombshell. Quantum Break looked amazing. I love what they've redone with Halo and some of the maps, so I'm looking forward to that. They even showed snippets of Halo 5's beta maps coming out in December. And if you get a chance to check those out, those look pretty good too. Those were impressive. So definitely looking forward to some of the other games they have. And they had some really cool indies. People say that they didn't have a lot of new things to show, but that's not true. If you check out the indies that they put out, a lot of those indies are first to console, and a lot of them actually were new IPs, and some of them are actually Kickstarter games. So it was a really good conference for both, I think. So obviously, Tomb Raider was the bombshell of the show. It made a lot of Xbox fans happy. It made a lot of PlayStation and PC fans not so happy. And I mean, Twitter was a riot. we would have needed the National Guard to try to control this thing because it was out of control. So with that announcement, Tomb Raider was a bombshell and it shocked many gamers across platforms. Now, do you guys think it will benefit Microsoft and will it help move units? Jez?
This is a tough question. When I first heard about it, I saw people saying, "Oh, it's bad for consumers, blah blah blah. Exclusivity is bad for consumers." But competition is never bad for consumers. I mean, if Sony weren't in a position of complete complacency right now, they would be fighting back and bringing their fans something on a similar level. And there's rumours that Silent Hill could go exclusive to PlayStation platforms.
Okay.
But the competition, it's... I mean, whether it's a game exclusivity or features, and as we see, Microsoft have been really pushing the boat out, giving us updates on the Xbox One, so on and so forth. But the only thing that will shift units is games. You can't market the fact that Xbox One will run MKV files in the September update.
Right.
You can only market Tomb Raider only on Xbox. And as I said on Twitter to people, this wasn't designed to piss off PlayStation 4 fans. It was designed to move people from 360 to Xbox One instead of 360 to PS4.
Right.
Because millions of people are still on the old gen. And also social media is playing such a massive role in this generation compared to previous generations. People don't bother doing the research themselves, finding out what consoles have the best features and that.
Right.
They just listen to hearsay.
Right.
So if more people have PS4, they'll just say, "Oh, buy PS4." They won't listen to reason or anything. The amount of people I've spoke to in real life who thought Watch Dogs and Destiny were PlayStation 4 exclusives blows my mind.
Wow.
So the only thing that shifts units is games, and Microsoft know it, and that's part of the reason why Tomb Raider is no exclusive.
Right. Brandon, what are your thoughts on the on Tomb Raider? Do you think it'll move units for Microsoft?
To be honest, it'll probably move a couple units, but the fact that they came out and said that it's going to 362 will not move any units, or not as big as they had planned on originally.
Right.
Because
is it going to 360 as well?
Yes, it is.
That kind of ruins my point, doesn't it?
So the fact that they came out and said, it's hitting 360 as well, it's like, then what was the purpose of it being exclusive? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to move units and move your next-gen box, then pay enough money to make it exclusive to Xbox One. I understand, they still want to appeal to the masses because that's where, their biggest audience is on the 360. But if you continue to give them games that should only be next-gen games, then why should I go spend $400 on your new system? And that's how I kind of look at it. I mean, I think it's good for Microsoft to have the exclusivity, no matter how long it is. That'll always attract gamers. And then with like Halo and 5 releasing next year, I mean, it's pretty big. It's just another game you can add to your catalog for holiday 2015.
Right.
But to say that it'll move units, I don't think it's going to move that many.
It's funny that you say that because I spoke to Phil about a similar situation when Titanfall first got announced. When it first got announced and it was coming to PC and it was coming to 360, the first thing I said to Phil Spencer was that if you want people to move from Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, you can't keep putting new, exclusive titles on Xbox 360. Now, that's not to negate the fan base of 360, and it's not to say that they don't deserve it. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have a brand new console and you're trying to move units, which is very important right now, you need to keep next generation games next generation and stop making these dub games for the Xbox 360 fan base. If you want to give them something new, give them a new IP if that's the case. But you got to keep these next gen games next gen, so that way they say, hey, you know what? I want to get an Xbox One so I can go ahead and play, Titanfall or play the next Tomb Raider. So, and the thing he said to me was that he wanted to reward the 360 fan base because they deserved it. They've waited. They had a drought of games, and they were loyal, and they've been with Xbox for many years. So
yeah, it's like he understands. Like he understands what he's doing, I guess.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like I really couldn't argue with that, because from a business perspective, you can't just leave 80 million left out to dry, especially when a lot of them haven't made the transition to Xbox One. But at the same time, you're still trying to sell a new product, and your competition is now beating you 2-1. So you're going to start having to take drastic measures. I think Tomb Raider was one of those steps. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, reiterating what you're saying, he can't do that. I mean, I understand he thinks it's good for the consumer because he has the big install base with 360. But if you're trying to get Xbox Ones out the door, you're not helping yourself by continuing to allow these cross-gen games. You got to start moving. We got to start moving these games to next gen. I mean, we've been sitting almost 9 years at current, at 360 and PS3 days. So that's a long lifespan. That's longer than any console life cycle, was it not?
Right.
Previously.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So it's time to move on. So do I think that Tomb Raider Xbox One is going to help move units? I don't think it will. And for the simple fact that they are making the game for 360. So all those people that, just don't want to spend $400 for the new system, they're just going to buy it for the 360. And truthfully, the game, it looked really good on the 360, the original, the Tomb Raider reboot, did it not? I mean, it looked pretty good for really that good. old of a console. So they may not see the discrepancy being worth it. And that's another thing to look at, the discrepancy in graphics. I mean, it may just not be big enough leap for them to make that jump. So with that being said, that's pretty much where I sit on it. I just don't think it's going to move. It's not going to accomplish what Phil wants it to, unfortunately. I do think, I'm not trying to say it's not going to sell any units. It's not going to move any.
Right.
That's not realistic. It's going to move some, but it's not going to move the amount that I believe that he thought it was going to move when he invested this money in the deal.
For me, it was like, okay, they've done this. It's a no-brainer that it's Xbox One exclusive, not on Xbox 360. But now you've said that it's on Xbox 360. I don't think it'll move any sort of units either. Like nothing significant. Like it's not going to suddenly close the gap between Xbox One and PS4. Now that that information has come to light, I didn't even think that was a logical possibility.
Yeah.
There it is.
I think the biggest thing is, to me, when I look at it from the perspective of Tomb Raider being on Xbox One exclusively for 2015, I start thinking about all the games and all the exclusive DLC coming out in 2015. I think more than anything, it's not so much Tomb Raider by itself, more than it is the library that is dropping next year that's going to move units. If you can't move units, if Microsoft cannot move units next year, and I don't mean like hundreds of thousands, I'm talking about millions, getting guys off of 360 onto Xbox One, if they can't move units next year, I don't think they will ever move units this generation. Because next year, you have Fable Legends, Halo 5, an exclusive Tomb Raider, Quantum Break, exclusive DLC from The Division, exclusive DLC from Evolve, along with any games that will be announced at E3, and we already know that Rare is working on something. So that's not to mention the Scream Ride announcement for the Roller Coaster Tycoon fans, and any other games that's in development that we haven't even heard of, because they're going to announce something at E3 for the fall. So it's just like, man, that lineup next year is heavy hitting AAA bombs, and I'm not saying that Sony's not gonna come with some punches, but those are big bombs that they got coming out next year. And if you can't move millions of units, at least 1 million or 2 million units next year, I don't see how they're gonna move it. Gears will definitely move some when it comes out. I don't know what Crackdown will do, but Halo 5, that is the game that people love. That is what makes Xbox. And if you can't do it with Halo 5, I don't know what you can do it with. I really don't. So Jez is our Xbox Mad correspondent, and he's seen some really special games at Gamescom. And the games that he saw, obviously, if you haven't read his articles, definitely hit up xboxmad.net. They are very insightful, and it will really get you giddy. So, Jez saw some games that he was really impressed with. And, Jez, I just want to ask you, which game stood out to you the most? And what did you see behind closed doors that we fans didn't see during the conference?
Quantum Break was sort of on my radar. I mean, I really enjoyed Max Payne, Sam Lake's Max Payne's and Alan Wake. I enjoyed them, but I didn't think they were like, mind-blowingly great games. So I didn't really have particularly high hopes for Quantum Break. I just thought it would be like this sort of linear shooting cover shooter game.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to see an extended gameplay demo of the one that they showed during their streamed conference, and it absolutely blew my mind. It was the best graphics I've seen on anything, period. It was completely live gameplay running on Xbox One. Like I could physically see the Xbox One it was running on.
Wow.
It was do you remember that really early footage with the tanker crashing into the bridge?
Right, during the E3, the E3 premiere thing.
Yeah, that was in-engine graphics.
Wow, that's
so in the stream, it shows Jack fighting a guy clad in like an exoskeleton, who can walk through these time stutters where time freezes and collapses in on itself and stuff. The whole game's about preventing the end of time, and because of some physics experiment gone wrong. And the extended demo carries on after that, and it shows that tanker from the original E3 reveal slamming into the bridge that you're on, and that's all real time in engine, and you have to climb through the bridge as it's exploding around you and freezing and rewinding and timelines collapsing in on each other. It's mind blowing, and the amount of detail on screen, and still the game ran completely smooth. The frame rate was solid. I think it's 30 frames per second. Just completely solid, no stuttering, no lag, smooth as hell, amazing textures, better than Rise, amazing lighting. I can't put across how amazing this game looked on a graphical level. And not only that, but the art direction was just incredible. Like the amount of detail, like each piece of glass flying out of a car's windshield in slow motion. And I think like part of what I wrote in the article was about like how, because the game centers so much around stopping and starting time,
right,
they've had to put in this extra attention to detail into little things that perhaps in other games that have a constant speed, they don't need to render them in so much detail, because you might only see them for a few frames or a split second. So like a can of Coke, for example, they might not have to fully texture that, because you might see it flying through the air, blurred, and then it's gone. Right. But in this, the can of Coke might be suspended in front of your face.
Right.
So if it's blurred and ugly, you're going to see it. So they're having to render everything in to some degree of quality. And the result is just something that seems truly next-gen, quotation marks.
Man,
it was really mind-blowing.
I got butterflies in my stomach listening to that. I'm like...
Most anticipated.
Yeah, I'm like seriously excited for next year to play this game, man. I'm like really hyped.
They've done an amazing job.
What are your thoughts on the game that you love, which was Dragon Age? What blew you away with that?
Obviously, Quantum Break was a really special thing. It was a really special thing, but I'm not a massive RPG fan. So, obviously, they showed the new trailer recently. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, I've seen it. It's stellar.
Oh, okay.
What's it called? The Evil of Thedas or something? It's basically it debuts the big villain of Dragon Age Inquisition. It's the Frostbite engine. So the lighting was gorgeous. The water effects, like, because you're in this like I think it's like a swamp sort of place. So there was like loads of water everywhere, and the water was amazing. Dynamic reflections, dynamic shadows, the lightning coming down, rain coming down. Like there isn't really that much weather in the other Dragon Age games, but this was truly like a sight to behold. For fans of Dragon Age, I mean, I don't know how much you guys are into Dragon Age or how much listeners of your podcast are into Dragon Age.
Yeah, I'm an RPG guy. That's my genre.
Yeah, me too, man. I own all the Dragon Ages and DLC.
Dragon Age 2 is quite controversial.
Right.
Because Dragon Age 2, it was critically acclaimed. I think it's got above 80% on Metacritic. But the fans were really sort of annoyed with it at first because it was so different from Origins, combat-wise. It went sort of almost towards sort of almost World of Warcraft sort of combat, very reactive, less tactical, more about spamming your abilities on cooldown and setting up chains and that. It was very, very different for Dragon Age Origins. It was very, very cut corners, slapdash, and it came out just a year after Origins. It didn't feel like the sequel that Origins deserved, but Dragon Age Inquisition does look like the true sequel to Dragon Age Origins.
Yes, thank you.
Where you can swing your camera above the map and move it around. You can select your party members individually, tell them to hold a position. They showed off a bit more how that can be done. Like they showed your tank character with a shield holding a choke point to protect your weaker characters while they rain fire down on the enemies and stuff. All that typical stuff that we've seen already.
Gotcha.
But I think the gameplay I saw wasn't really anything new in particular. It was just a bit of an explanation about how the sort of game works. It's similar to Mass Effect in that you have a base like the Normandy, you have a Skyhold Castle, you have a galaxy map similar to Mass Effect, but it's called the War Table, and quests pop up on the galaxy map, War Table, and you can travel there straight away to do a quest or a mission or visit an area which might have a main quest and some side quests a bit. And it did remind me of the way Mass Effect works structurally,
right?
With the map in the middle. Then you travel out instantly across the game world.
I was gonna two questions. How's the animation look to you in the game as far as the fluidity of the movement of the characters, the combat? How does it look? And also, is the game an open world? Can you not besides just going straight to a mission, can you not just travel there? Like actually go through the map itself?
Right, to answer your first question, Inquisition is it seems like a very happy medium. When the warden in the gameplay I saw was a two-handed warrior, and she was swinging a weapon and it felt really, really heavy, but there was still very reactive abilities as well, which played out much faster in amongst all these really heavy weapon swings.
Right.
And the weapons, they shatter the ground, your sword shatters the ground because it's so heavy, and the animations, they do look a lot better, and there's not just two casting animations now. Each spell seems to have its own hand gesture.
That's awesome.
Animation.
That sounds
which
great.
is really cool.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it is truly. It feels like they've just gone back to Origins and decided how can we make Origins better, whilst taking maybe some of the lessons they learned from Dragon Age 2.
Right.
It really does seem like a true sequel to Origins. I think that's the only way I can put it. Regarding your second question, it's not open world in the sense that Skyrim is open world. You can't see mountains in the distance and travel there.
Oh, okay.
But it's more akin to Mass Effect 2, where you basically you can travel to an area like the Citadel, and it'll be huge, and there'll be quests that take you off into a little side dungeon underneath or something, and a city that marries an area together, but it's not truly open world in the Skyrim sense. It's very non-linear, but it's not open world.
So the one thing we didn't see at the show was the Division. And I mean, they was promoting the Division, that see it live on Xbox for the first time, all over Twitter. And the one thing I wanted to see, I didn't get a chance to see. Were you able to see that when you were at the show?
Yes. I saw that at the Xbox briefing after party. Microsoft hired a hotel, but Ubisoft had taken over the basement, and in the basement they'd set up the Division and Assassin's Creed Unity. And I think this is the same demo that they've been showing at Gamescom as well. I think, I'm not sure, but yeah, I did get a completely live demo of the Division running on Xbox One and a Surface 2 tablet, which was quite surprising. So I think the emphasis of the demo was to show how second screen gameplay is not just a gimmick. I mean, I would argue that Battlefield 4's tablet gameplay, like the commander mode, I would argue that that's a gimmick, because all you do is like tap on the screen. Do you know what I mean? But in the Division, when you're playing as a tablet player, you're controlling a drone. You're in the 3D world, the real world. You can see the soldiers, or the, I don't know what they're called, hunters or something, in real time, and it was fully synchronized in the live demo I saw, and it did make me wonder if the reason that Microsoft and the Division are partnering so closely is because it might be something to do with Windows Azure, because there's no way they could achieve that sort of synchronicity without dedicated servers. Because Watch Dogs connectivity was pretty bad, and it was peer-to-peer, I believe. Whereas, like, you connect to someone's Xbox with the fastest connection, and their Xbox hosts the games.
Right.
Especially when you're invading someone's game. Obviously, that doesn't take place on a server. That takes place on someone's Xbox.
Yeah, that's why Watch Dogs multiplayer is so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but there's no way they could have achieved that connectivity without dedicated servers. And Ubisoft aren't known to invest in dedicated servers. I mean, when the Watch Dogs came out, Uplay basically exploded, in a ball of flames because they couldn't handle the server load. And I just imagine, like, well, Ubisoft, what are they going to do? They're going to invest all this money in dedicated servers to make all this synchronicity happen. And it makes me wonder if they aren't doing some sort of a Windows Azure deal, and that's why Xbox One's become the lead platform. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I thought that, not to cut you off, but I thought it also may have to do with DX12 too, because on DX11, I know that they're using the DX program to build that game. So, and being that it's releasing next year, it's a possibility that may be one of the games using some of the assets from DX12. You throw Cloud in that, and it says a lot, game-wise for the Xbox platform, and why maybe they have a partnership in the first place.
It's hard to say. I mean, the game's obviously still in development, and it did have, like, some incredible detail, like, not as good as Quantum Break, but considering it's an open world game, the level of detail was truly insane.
It looked better than Watch Dogs.
But yeah, it did look better than Watch Dogs, much better.
Nice.
It looked like the original Watch Dogs demo that got downgraded, and that's what made me worried, because it did lag, and it did screen tear, and it did frame rate drop, which not many other websites seem to have reported on. But I'm calling it like I say it. It did have really rife screen tearing. Even worse. I mean, Thief was criticised for having screen tearing. It was worse than Thief's screen tearing, and I don't think they're going to want to ship it with that sort of screen tearing. It wasn't unplayable by any means, and the screen tearing only happened when they're looked off into the distance, and the draw distance was really impressive. But it caused screen tearing and frame rate drops, and I can't imagine they'll want to ship it like that. So it made me wonder if it could get some sort of graphical downgrade like Watch Dogs.
You heard it here first. Just confirms it's going to get a downgrade.
I mean, they've still got a year to develop it. I don't know how recent the code was. I mean, there might be further optimizations they can do down the road with DX12 APIs and what have you, but what I saw was too laggy to go to retail, I think.
Gotcha. And that is a Tick Podcast Xbox Mad no fanboy fluff. That is the truth. We're giving it to you straight. You know, some of these websites would try to butter it up for Microsoft, but listen, man, we trying to bring it to you live, try to bring it to you truthfully.
Yeah, I can't say it ran perfectly. I mean, I love Xbox, and you know, I think all that resolution stuff is just a load of BS. But you know, it didn't run perfectly. It's just the truth.
Well, yeah, I think the good thing is that they got time to work on it. They haven't announced any release date or anything like that, so there's plenty of time to work on those frames and get that where it needs to be. So let's move into indies. There were plenty of games shown this year from indie developers. Very quickly, I want you to give me the 2 indies from either Microsoft or Sony that impressed you the most and that is on your radar. Let's start with you, Brandon.
The first one would probably have to be Wild, and then the second one would be Ori and the Blind Forest. I would have to go with Wild first, simply because that's made from the same guy who actually does Rayman, and Rayman is probably one of my favorite platformers next to Super Mario. And I really like the direction that Wild has. I mean, it's a big open world with all these animals and things like that. It looked very impressive. And then Ori would have to be my second one, simply because after reports have come out, they actually said that it's a very challenging game, and it's not something that everybody can just hop onto and get through. So I'm really excited to see the gameplay aspects of Ori and what that has to offer.
Mike, what are your thoughts? What games you were most interested in?
It's coming from the Xbox One, even though I just said the shows from both were just, slightly above average, I guess. The indies did stand out, and Space Engineers really caught my eye. I really liked what they showed on that demo. It's a 3D deal where you kind of, both of you start on 2 different sides, and you work on repairing
space stations.
The space stations, and then you actually, I guess at some point with the multiplayer aspect of it, you can go after each other's space stations and sabotage them or whatever. It's so quirky and different, man, but so refreshing.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. So it really stood out to me in my mind. And the other one, man, that stood out to me is also from Xbox One. So kudos to Xbox One. You want to talk about them not having as good of indies as PlayStation? Mm-hmm. What? Whatever. The Escapist.
That was pretty cool. That's a pretty cool concept.
That looks freaking awesome, man. 16-bit, over-the-top view. Basically, you just go day to day in a prison, working on ways to escape the prison.
Right. And
that seems so minute, but it seems like they add a lot of flavor to it, a lot of different choices you can make to try to escape the prison, whether that be in trying to like pay off guards or just dig your way out. It's gonna be an interesting game, man. So those 2 games stood out to me as far as indies go, and Xbox One shined to me personally over Sony in that regard. So
awesome choices. Jez, what did you think?
I'm not a massive indie fan. I'm like really cynical towards indies. But having said that, there are a few indies that I've really, really enjoyed. And I actually got to play a couple at Gamescom. Have you heard of a game called, I think it's IDARB?
IDARB, man.
It's very weird looking, that game.
Yeah, that's my most anticipated indie of
I have
of
no
all
idea
the indies.
what that game is.
I think it's an 8-player it's designed for esports. It's basically like soccer. You have to get the ball and put it in the enemy team's goal, and you can like tackle the ball off people and stuff. It sounds pretty mundane. It's 16-bit, but the twist is that you can tweet at the game, and you can tweet pictures, power-ups, and other things into the game to hinder the teams and things like that, I believe.
What?
So, yeah, there's like, it comes up whenever you use the iDob hashtag. I mean, it works even now for people who are running it in beta or whatever. When I was playing it at the Xbox briefing all alone, I might add, which it isn't really conducive to finding out what it's like in a multiplayer game. Yeah, but people were using that. I could see the tweets coming up at the bottom, and pictures were flying onto the screen. It was really, really, really weird. It was very, very different. It could be like, it could really take off. I think like just the concept, if not the game itself. But also, I got to play Ori in the Blind Forest for about 30 minutes.
Oh man,
And
That's a great playthrough.
I don't know if that actually counts as an indie because it's being published by Microsoft Studios, isn't it?
Right. It is.
But let's just pretend that it is an indie. It was brilliant. The platforming was really hard. It reminded me of like the later stages in old school Mario games.
Oh wow.
Like the last levels where things just get really, really hard. And this was like at the start of the demo. You know, I was like, what?
Right.
I can't. This is really hard. It's reminding me of being a little kid and getting really frustrated.
Right.
But it was very impressive, and it's going to be definitely one to pick up, I think.
That's an awesome choice too. I mean, I've been looking at Ori since they announced it at E3. That's without question. I think the indies that impressed me the most, and it's going to be one from Sony and one from Microsoft, was obviously Rhyme, which is obviously something I touched on earlier. And the other game that it seems really good that nobody has really talked about was a Ghost Tale. Which is where you play this mouse in this like fabulesque world, and you fight undead rats, and you use your little mouse ability, and you have on armor, you use a sword. It's like crazy. So I'm like really interested in that game, and Rhyme definitely had me interested as well. I'm hoping to see more on both those two games because like I said, I'm not a big indie fan myself. You know, plenty of guys have heard me say, you know, indies is like a side dish to the main course to me. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad side dish. It can be an amazing side dish. So I do look forward to those games when they come out. With so many games and changes to the Xbox One, what do you guys think Microsoft needs to do, being that they've already started to improve on their track record and making these changes to please the fans, and you got the Xbox feedback and all these new updates that's coming out, and literally we just have a brand new system compared to what it was when it first was announced. Is there anything else that they need to do to make it more appealing to people who maybe they own PlayStation and say, I'll never get an Xbox? What is it that they have to do to convince those guys and the people who are on 360 to go ahead and buy an Xbox One to get it in their home this generation? Let's start with you, Mike.
Simple. More IPs from first party. That's it. The dashboard issues are taking care of themselves, right? You alluded to that. It's getting even better and better. And at this point, I have both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and the Wii U. We'll throw that in, just an honorable mention. But the PS4 dashboard, I mean, compared at first when I got both consoles, I won't lie, PS4's dashboard was better to me, a little bit better. But the Xbox One has surpassed it since. I mean, the featured updates are amazing. So it's taking care of itself there. First party IPs, they need to invest more. I'm sorry, I'm putting it plain and simple. They need to invest more. And the reason I say this, I mean, so we have Halo, we have our Forza, and we have our Gears of War. That's great. But that's been the knock. That's the knock that a lot of people, you know, if you compare it to Sony does have more IPs out there that they continually invest in and create new. And it seems like it's Sony still getting that. They're still doing that, and Xbox still kind of staying in their comfort zone. We need to see Phil take a leap of faith. MechAssault, I want to go back to a couple, and I'm not even saying it don't have to be necessarily brand new intellectual properties. It can be, existing ones from back on OG Xbox. He made a big stink about bringing back OG Xbox games. All right, we got Phantom Dust. Not a bad one, but not the most popular choice.
Right.
Obviously, right? So Conquer would be good. Banjo-Kazooie would be good. Now, I can't say anything about Rare because Rare is obviously working on something new. And let's hope to God that it is a Banjo-Kazooie because that would be sweet. Or a Perfect Dark. I'll take either one. But so I feel good about that. But I think he could create a few more studios. He really could. They cut all those jobs. They got rid of the Xbox Entertainment division. Those that had to open up some resources somewhere, and I would say that they should be able to maybe form a couple more studios, maybe one more big one, okay, and give us that Shanghai that he promised us. Give us that. Give us give us that from a new IP perspective, and then maybe bring back MechAssault if he's looking for a hack and slash replacement. We were talking about it about Too Human, possibly buying that IP and giving it to the right developer because that's an IP that already has all the story and lore right there, and it's actually really interesting.
So I think Microsoft owns Too Human though.
Well, Brandon, I'll let Brandon mention that when he talks about the details about that because he looked into that. But anyway, that's where I stand, man. More first party IP investment, whether that be existing in the past or new.
Gotcha. Jess, what are your thoughts on that?
There are people being paid ridiculous amounts of money who can't answer this question. Microsoft, I'm not just an Xbox fan, I'm an all-round sort of Microsoft guy,
right.
And I have been for a long time. They've always had this image problem. They've always been walking on eggshells. I mean, the Xbox 360 was so low-key and sort of came out of nowhere. People forget that it came out a year before the PS3 because it released a year earlier and because of that price point. People, they don't have love for Microsoft products except for like odd people like myself. So like you were saying that they should invest more in first-party IP. They're already investing way more than Sony are in first-party IP, and they've still got that image problem. It's going to be really, really hard to change perceptions because social media is stubborn. People have made their intellectual investments in the PlayStation now. The Xbox One could dispense rainbows from its disk drive and people would still hate it. Because for me, they're doing all the right things. I mean, I've said since day one that the Xbox One is a better product than the PS4. And it's even more of a better product than the PS4 is right now. It's got a bigger budget. It's got more promise of the years to come. The PS4 has literally nothing over the Xbox One except for a legion of people on Twitter supporting it blindly over the Xbox One. I mean, there are people who buy both because they want to play the PS4, the few PS4 IPs that are worth buying a PS4 for. But if you're going to make the choice between one or the other, for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. But if everyone around you is telling you to buy a PS4 and you're not that strong-willed, what are you going to buy? And that's what they're fighting against.
I think, I mean, there's a small perception behind it. I mean, Microsoft hasn't been one of the best performers game-wise, and that's obviously shown by Digital Foundry and Eurogamer, with a lot of the frame rate issues or screen tears that they show, comparing it to PlayStation's steadiness. I mean, I find that to be minor, but I think that's enough incentive for people to go ahead and pick the PlayStation brand, because it was enough incentive for them to pick the 360 for multi-plats last gen. So I think PlayStation has its strengths, and I can see how people would pick it over the Xbox. But I also think that Xbox doesn't deserve the scrutiny that it has gotten now compared to what it got earlier when it did deserve it. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
I would have to actually agree with Mike. I think the biggest issue is first party. I've mentioned this before. if you look at the 360's history, what first party game was made that actually continued on the 360? You can't name one. All of Microsoft's biggest hitters have been from the original Xbox. Forza started on the original Xbox.
Right.
Halo started on the original Xbox.
Minus Gears. Don't forget
Yeah,
Gears.
but Gears just became a first party game this year. That was always owned by Epic.
Yeah,
so,
and they had to buy it.
That's true. That's true.
Right. So all of the big hitters came from the original Xbox. Fable was on the original Xbox. So all these big games, like, they've had this extended lifetime. And I understand, they sell the most, so of course you want to keep investing in those. But Rare completely fell off. Yeah, they sold a bunch of games with the Kinect Sports. They sold the most peripherals with that. But as far as being a hardcore fan of Rare, and I've loved Rare since I was a kid, even when they were doing like the Donkey Kong games, like, I couldn't care less about what Rare's doing. I love Rare for the old games that they used to make, not for Kinect Sports. And then you look at the rest of their first party lineup. They have all these first party studios like Grounded Inc. and LXP, Rare, like all these studios. But the only ones we really hear from are Turn 10. Now we got
343, Black
343, and Black Tusk.
Yeah.
So I think they have to find an identity other than like being a racing shooter console, and I think deeper games like Quantum Break will kind of help identify what they're trying to do, and I think like reinvesting in some of the early IPs that they had on the 360 that kind of never went anywhere. I mean, if you look at Perfect Dark, I mean, for what it was when the 360 first launched, I think that was a great reboot for what it was, and then it released when the 360 came out, and you never saw anything else about it after that. Games like Cameo, which that game should have had a second game, and that could have been like their platformer, that could have been their Ratchet and Clank, that could have been their Jack and Dexter, that could have been something that Xbox fans kind of identify with. During that generation, and they just didn't do anything with that. And then you look at some of the RPGs and stuff that were kind of invested in early, like The Last Remnant, Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon. None of those games, saw a second release after they were initially released. And then you look at a game like Too Human, which I still own that game, still pop it in every once in a while. That was a great exclusive for Microsoft. Great hack and slash, great combo system. Art direction was really good, but it sold under 1 million units, so of course they didn't reinvest. And I think with them going back to Phantom Dust, a game that really didn't sell as well, it's kind of a step in the right direction. You reinvest in something that the fans were interested in and just didn't have the great sales behind it. So hopefully, something like that will keep them going and bring new light to the Xbox One. But in regards to what Jez was mentioning, as far as like Microsoft not being respected or kind of looked over, if you go up to any casual gamer and you just say, give me the first thing that you think about when you think about gaming, I guarantee you 85 to 90% they're going to say PlayStation.
Right.
Just because that's what's on the mind. That's what people talk about. And that's kind of why I promote the Xbox so much, because it's not talked about as much as it should be. Right. And I really like what the guys over at Xbox Mad.net do. Really Xbox focus.
Right.
And that's something that I think as gamers and supporters of Xbox, we really need to continue. Not really getting into these wars with PlayStation guys, but really just uplifting what the Xbox is and what it has to offer.
Well, how I feel about Xbox guys, that's my system of preference. I prefer that system. It's not that I don't love PlayStation. I really do. I think Microsoft, they have the IPs. I said this on Twitter a few days ago. They should be known as the king of platformers. And with games like Conquer, Banjo, Jet Force Gemini, Blast Corps, there's a ton of IPs that Rare owns, and Microsoft can revive any of those franchises, and if it's done right, would bolster their library big time. And they have a lot of first party studios. We just don't know anything about them. You got the game Eden Falls that we spoke on, and people know about that is something in the works. Obviously, Lionhead is going to work on something else. They already announced that 343 is working on another game. Whether it's Halo related, I'm not sure. But I'm hoping that it's not. And hopefully, I'm in agreement with Mike. Hopefully, the first party will pick up. And I think those will show that Microsoft is heading in the right direction by creating and owning their own IPs. As well as still purchasing third parties. I'm not saying they shouldn't purchase third parties. I think they should. But I think that owning and creating their own IPs is just as important as doing deals with third parties and doing deals with second parties to bolster their lineup and make them the premier system for blockbuster and AAA games. So that's it for our show. And I want to thank Jez and Xbox Mad for taking the time to come on the show and talk about Gamescom and the things that he's experienced. It was a great listen. And obviously I want to thank my podcast guys, Bmuny and Unified, for being on the show as well for this Gamescom roundtable. Do you guys have any final last words before we head out? Jez?
Buy Dragon Age Inquisition. Even if you don't want anything else, this or...
Gotcha. Unified?
Quick question for Jez. Jez, did Alien Isolation look good to you? Did you see it? Play it?
I saw it extremely briefly, but I did get to see it running on Xbox One at the briefing. They only had one unit set up for Alien Isolation, and there was quite a few people hogging it, so I didn't get to play it. I just want to get in as well. Evolve had insane graphics as well. Just reminded me of it because Evolve has alien monsters in it too.
Gotcha.
And that's another game I saw that looked really incredible.
All right, Brandon.
Everybody just stay tuned, man. I mean, Inner Circle, we're trying to do some big things for the fans. The Madden season coming up, so everybody stay tuned for that.
That's right.
As well as the Fantasy Football League for Inner Circle. So, we're trying to reach out to everybody. So, if you're down with Inner Circle, man, hit us up and get involved, man. It's Xbox all day.
Thank you to all the subscribers and followers of Tick Podcast for taking the time to listen to the Gamescom Roundtable. Please check out xboxmad.net, where you can get troll-free moderated news on upcoming games, the latest features, and what's new with Xbox consoles. As a reward to our subscribers and new subbers, Tick is giving away Forza Motorsport 5 to the first place and a $10 Xbox Live code to second place winners who can correctly answer this question. Quote, what game title releasing in 2015 did I, KOR Straight Murder, announce incorrectly during the show? Winners will be announced Tuesday at 5 p.m. Like, comment, and tell a friend to subscribe to the best Xbox fan podcast on the net. For fans, by fans, in affiliation with XboxMad.net. Thank you for listening. Peace.